Alrighty, we are back with insider betting. We got Ngannou taking on Renan Ferreira for his first fight in 2.5 years. We got another fight at the Apex this weekend, but first things first, Jesse, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to see Francis Ngannou back. It's exciting, getting him back to his roots in MMA. But yeah, I don't know. We have dueling brands this weekend. We have PFL's biggest event of all time versus a UFC Apex card. So let's see, PFL. Come on, let's see how many pay-per-views you can sell, compete with a UFC Apex card. This is a true
test. It's gonna
be
interesting.
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting. I don't know. I like the UFC card better, but I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, will be tuning in to that main event for that PFL card while probably watching the rest.
It's early in the day. It's in Saudi Arabia, so it's early in the day.
Yeah, fair enough. But anyway, let's get into it here. So we don't usually talk about the prelims, but the way Rebeldes de Spain's last fight went, I thought it was worth talking about one more time. Rebeldes de Spain went into his last fight 5-0 against Waldis Cortes Acosta, and he lost by decision. Everybody kind of assumed, including us, I think. I know I for sure thought this. I don't remember your thoughts, Jesse, but I was like, it's a first round KO. This guy's going to destroy him. And then it was a boring 3-round fight. He's going up against Austin Lane, who's on a 2-fight losing streak. He got knocked out against Johanta Diniz and Justin Tafa. And yeah, Rebeldes de Spain, he's a bronze medalist in Taekwondo. I think he won it in the 2012 London Olympics. Austin Lane has an NFL background. He's a 5th-round draft pick for the NFL Jags. He was a 5th-round draft pick in the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jesus Christ. So it's a mouthful. Anyway, like kind of what we saw last fight, Rebeldes couldn't really get up when he was taken down. He kind of gassed out a little bit, and he was just kind of controlled on the ground for most of the fight. But the nice thing is Austin Lane, not that great of a wrestler. He's got 11 knockouts in his 12 wins, where the Spain has 5 knockouts in his 5 wins. So I think it's going to be a just absolute banger. And in this fight, again, I'm predicting it one more time. I think we're going to see a first round knockout, but I'm not going to bet the house on it this time.
Fuck, man, that last fight really threw me through a loop on this. Obviously, the path to victory here is clear for Austin Lane if he decides he wants to wrestle, because Despain just showed no ability to clinch and wrestle and all that stuff. He's very raw skill set. The odds on this are insane because he's obviously a minus 350 or whatever, 345 to win, but he's a minus 320 by knockout. So like you're not even getting any extra juice on betting on that. So it might be just betting that this fight ends in the first round. Which I can't find that first minute finish. Fight ends in the first 60 seconds of round 1 is a plus 400 if you want to bet yes. So if you feel like this fight doesn't have any chance of going far, that's your best bet. That's your sprinkle of the night. Lock it in, plus 400. This fight doesn't last 60 seconds.
Yeah. What's the over under they have on rounds on DraftKings right now?
The over round props. I don't see any. I'm not sure. Fight lines. Here we go. Over, under. This is crazy. The over under is 0.5. 0.5. So
what are the odds on that?
45 to go over, plus 175 to go under. So you lose a little bit of juice. But if you think it goes under, if you think it goes like 2 minutes, you might as well throw that in there. I'll take it. I'll take the plus 175 under 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, it seems that seems good.
But anyway, the only way you're making money on this, unless you throw them in a parlay.
I think either way, we're probably both going towards Austin Lane here. I don't think his grappling, we're going towards Rebeldes de Spain. I don't think Austin Lane's grappling is enough. Even though he gets 1 takedown per fight, he only has a 20% takedown accuracy. I don't think he's gonna do much with it.
This is a stand-up fight, and I've interviewed Austin before. I like the guy a lot. Very cool guy. But I just think if this is a stand-up fight, which I think it is, he's in trouble.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Anyways, opening up our main card, because again, we don't like talking about prelims and you guys don't like listening to them. We have Mateusz Nicolau versus Asu Almabayev. I don't know. Almabayev. There we go. Almabayev is 3-0 in the UFC. He's on a 16-fight win streak. His 2 losses came back-to-back, and then he's won 16 fights straight. Mattheus Nicolau coming off of 2 losses, one to Alex Perez, the other one to Brandon Royval. It's an interesting fight. I think Nicolau is a really good fighter overall. I think he's a little bit chinny. I'm pretty sure he got knocked out against those 2 guys, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he got knocked out. Alex Perez knocked him out.
Yeah. So, and I think I'm like 90% sure Royval did as well. He's a little chinny. I don't think Asu has that KO power necessarily. Out of his 20 wins, he's got 9 submissions, 18 decisions, and I think that leaves 3 knockouts there. So he's not necessarily that knockout artist. But I do think he's the better overall fighter. I think even if Nicolau kind of fights him in his strengths, I think Asu still beats him. So I think it's a pretty good. I actually think this is probably one of your best odds of the night to make some money at -192, which still isn't great, but this card is kind of stacked for favorites, I'd say.
I like that take. I agree with you there because EV last name, you got a guy who's chinny, you got a guy who not a bad grappler by any means, but I mean, I think that Asu is probably the superior grappler. Decision feels like the bet. You get a +100 if you bet Almabayev by decision, so that's where Vegas thinks this is going. If you think there's a chance at submission or finish, +600 is kind of enticing. But yeah, I think this is decision for Almabayev. He's going to hold him down up against the fence, take him down. He's probably going to take him down like 4 or 5 times in 3 rounds. So I would take the over on takedowns. I haven't looked at that, but that would be my my bet here.
Yeah, and Nicolau's 93% takedown defense, so it shouldn't be kind of looked past as well. But I just don't think it'll be enough.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, my guess is decision. Almabayev.
Yeah, I agree. We got Darren Elkins versus Daniel Pineda. Daniel Pineda is he's been a bit of a tough stretch. He's lost his last 2 fights to Nathaniel Wood and Alex Caceres, both by decision, I should add. He's only got 1 win in his last 5. He's got a no contest in there and 3 losses. We got Darren Elkins, who's coming off of a win, and he kind of bounces between win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. His last one is against TJ Brown. His last loss is against Jonathan Pierce. I think what's going to happen is I think Pineda is going to come out hot. I think the first 3 minutes of the fight, he's going to come out swinging. I think he's going to kind of burst all his energy. I don't think he has the gas tank to go 15 minutes where I think Darren Elkins does. Darren Elkins is also he's also great on the ground. He's pretty good on his feet too. But yeah, I don't know. I was kind of bouncing between these two. These are the closest odds for the entire card, -108 and -112, basically even odds, but I'm still leaning towards Darren Elkins, which I just don't love that pick. I'll be honest. So I'm probably going to stay away from it, but that's just kind of what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, this is a battle of the old guys here. If you feel like betting on it, flip a coin, take your pick. This is like it's an ultimate coin flip fight. I'm leaning Elkins just because I like the guy a lot. He's got a cool story. There's actually a clip of Joe Rogan like crying on his podcast talking about Darren Elkins. So if you've never seen that, check it out. It's interesting. I guess he's very beloved in the MMA community. Cody Gibson once told me in an interview that he thinks that Elkins has like the best cardio of anybody he's ever met. So he's definitely a guy that can bring it and he can last for 3 rounds even at his age. But yeah, I'm not going to put any. I'll be honest. I'm not putting any money down on this. Flip a coin. If you are, flip a coin. So that's what I got.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I think we're on the same page there.
Before the next fight, Adam, we do have a little special message from our friends over at DraftKings.
Let's do it.
We'll be back to the video in just a second, but first, it's the NFL season. We're right in the thick of things, and you know Inside Fighting has partnered up with DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL, and we've got an amazing offer for you right now, where if you are a new DraftKings customer, you can go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly just by using our promo code Inside Fighting. There it is.
Absolutely killing it with the ad read once again.
Yeah, well, we turned him in a little late this week. We don't have to get into it. Maybe I'll explain it off air. But yeah, by the way, all of these odds that we do on the show are from DraftKings. So if you do feel like using those bonus bets, these are the correct odds. So
yes, sir. Anyways, next fight of the night, super unofficial because on the UFC website, it's still Brady Highstand versus
Yeah.
Jake Hadley. It's been reported that Brady's going to be out and that Jake is going to be fighting against Cameron Smotherman. It's updated on SureDog. Twitter seems to think that's the case. I'm kind of just going to go with it. Cameron Smotherman, UFC debut. I don't know if this fight will stay on the main card, but Smotherman, he's kind of been on a tear in his past, although his opponents obviously haven't been anything crazy. He's coming off a submission win. He also had a KO flying knee in one of his recent wins. He is 4 in his last 5. I don't have much to say about him. I don't know enough about him. It'll be interesting. I do think Jake Hadley, he's a pretty solid opponent. I think he'll be able to likely win against somebody making their debut. But I don't know. When it was Brady versus Jake, I had Brady winning. So I'm not like a Jake fanboy, if I'm being honest. I just don't know enough about Cameron to make a solid decision here. There's no odds available anywhere. It's just hard to bet on a guy who's making his debut. That's all. I don't know enough.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I like Brady Houston. I've interviewed him a couple times. Nice guy. I really love it. His fights are always so exciting, dude. It was a really big bummer that this fight isn't happening because his fights are always bangers. And I think Hadley actually filled in on short notice, I think against Kalen Lochran, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, that was his last win.
Yeah, and so he stepped in short notice. So this is like his second short notice fight in a row. Obviously, this time he's had a full camp, but he's taking on this guy. Look, I don't know. I don't know enough about Smotherman at all. I do think this is official because Iridium Sports Agency posted that Cameron has signed with the UFC and he will be fighting this fight. So I do think it is official. Just UFC hasn't announced it yet. But what was I going to say? I did see in the comments people saying like, oh, wow, they must want Jake Hadley to lose. So there might be some guys out there that are smarter than me, that know more than me or us, that think that this guy is actually very good and that Hadley has an uphill climb here. This is a tough matchup for him. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what the odds are going to say by tomorrow or Saturday morning, but I'm leaning Hadley just because he's had a full camp. But, it's like, who fucking knows, Adam? I have no idea. I'm not betting on it.
Yeah, no, I'm taking my 10-foot pole out and just sticking far away.
Exactly.
The one thing I'll say is that although Smotherman might have not had a camp, his last fight was on July 21st, so not that long ago. So he's probably in pretty decent shape still.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll leave it at that, I guess.
The weight cut will be interesting here. We'll see what happens with the weight cut tomorrow.
Exactly. Next up, we got, and this is the feature fight of the night for UFC. We got Charles Johnson versus Sue Mudaerji.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Jesse. Always stepping in for my pronunciations of names. Always a bit of a struggle. But anyway, Charles Johnson, he's already fought 3 times in 2024. He's won all 3 times. He's going for his 4th win in 2024, which is super, super impressive. His last 3 wins are also he's 3-5 in his last 5. So before 2024, he was on a bit of a losing skid. Since then, he's beat Josh Van, who won at UFC 306. And he's also beat Jake Hadley, who's fighting on this card. All of Sue's losses are by submission. If Charles Johnson can do something there, I think there might be something there. I think Charles Johnson will still kind of get the win overall. He is the favorite here. All 4 of his losses in the UFC, I should say as well, have come against quality opponents for the most part. He's lost to Muhammad Mokaev. He's lost to Ade Osborne, Cody Durden, and Rafael Estevam. He's also been taken down an insane amount by those opponents. So that's kind of what his weakness is grappling as well. So I don't think we'll see too much of a grappling exchange or an exchange on the ground here, but Mokaev took him down 12 times. Ode Osborne took him down 3 times, Durden 11, and Estevam 3. So that's kind of his weakness. It seems like I'm leaning towards Charles Johnson here. I think he's just a more experienced fighter. I think he's kind of riding a wave with Sue being on a 2-fight losing skid to Tim Elliott and Matt Schnell. But yeah, Charles Johnson seems like the obvious pick here at a -230 favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that he's rightfully the favorite here. I will say I do think Sue is an interesting high value underdog pick just because he's a great striker. He really is a good striker, and he's always had good moments in fights. Every time I've watched him in a fight, he has good moments. Like that fight against Matt Schnell is fucking insane. If you've never seen it, go back and watch that fight. It is wild. Schnell had no business winning that fight. None. It was just an incredible comeback that he mounted. It was Schnell, right? I'm sorry. I'm not. Yeah, Matt Schnell.
Yeah.
An insane
Yeah.
comeback where Mudhi was piecing him up. I think he almost had him knocked out at one point. It was crazy. And then Schnell ended up like just blood all over his face, getting on top of him and submitting him. Crazy fight. Go back and watch it if you never have. I'm 50-50 to be honest. I know the odds don't suggest it, but I kind of like Mudhi just based on the odds here because I do think he's a really great striker. And I don't know if it's tough. I don't listen to my advice on this one because I don't really feel all that confident with it. But like, if there was an underdog on this card, I would bet on it would be Mudhi. But I probably still lean Johnson anyway.
Yeah, I'm leaving my my underdog pick for the main event here.
I like that.
My only concern is that Mudhi's he's got 13 knockout wins and his 16 wins. He's got that knockout power, but I don't think Charles Johnson gets knocked out. I actually don't think he's ever lost by knockout. So
he doesn't.
If he doesn't get the knockout, can he do enough to get a decision win? Charles Johnson has proven he can do enough to get decision wins. So that's kind of why I'm leaning towards him, but that's all. But I agree. It's a lot more 50-50 than it seems like on paper.
Yeah. I mean, it's just tough. I just, you know, I like, you know me, I just like to find value somewhere. I like to sound smart. So I don't know. Maybe I won't sound so smart when this fight's over with, but I like the odds for Mudhi. I'll be honest.
We'll see on Saturday, I guess.
Yeah.
Co-main event of the night. We have a good friend of the show, Rob Font. He's I don't want to say a good friend of the show. He's really good friends with Mike Owens. I actually think they went to UFC 300 together, which is really cool. But good friend of the show, fighting Kyler Phillips. Rob Font, he's only won in his last 5, but he's fought the likes of Davidson Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, Chito Vera, Jose Aldo. So those are quality losses. And then you have Kyler Phillips, who's on a 3-fight win streak. He beat Pedro Munoz in his most recent fight. He's got 5 knockouts, 5 decisions in his 12 wins. It's a tough one. I think that form is what's going to play into it. I think Kyler Phillips, he's been on form recently. I think Rob Font has not been. I think Kyler Phillips is just a better all-around fighter. When you look at it statistically, he beats them basically in every statistic you want to beat him in. And yeah, I just think he's going to be the better overall fighter. He's more in form. He's younger. He's going to probably get the win here, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. This feels like Rob Font's going to get taken down a few times in this fight just by what I'm seeing here. And I do kind of like, they obviously Vegas is favoring decision. I'm picking Phillips. I think they're favoring decision. It's a -135 by decision, which means he doesn't have a lot of like finishing touch, so to say. But I just kind of feel like Rob Font is like, he got out wrestled by Corey Sandhagen, who's not a wrestler. Corey Sandhagen was just taking him down at ease with a torn shoulder. Like, just took him down like tons of times, just wrestled him for like 5 rounds. And I kind of feel like I think he can get submitted. He doesn't have a ton of submission losses. He only has like 1 or 2.
Rob Font?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
he's got 1
decision is the
submission,
way to
7
go.
decision.
Yeah, I think decision is the way to go here for Kyler Phillips, -135. I think that's the way to go. And I just think that Rob Font's going to have a long night on the map. I think he's going to get taken down a lot.
Yeah. 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 I know I said Kyler Phillips had 5 knockout and 5 decision wins out of his 12 wins, but he's only has 1 finish in the UFC, and that's a submission win against Marcelo Rojo. So he really isn't a finisher, but who knows? Maybe you see the submission, maybe the submission is coming.
I know, I'm thinking decision. The more I think about it, I think it's going to be, he's just going to be on the mat a lot. It's going to be a lot of takedowns. That's my guess. Rob Font's path to victory is clearly a knockout, which he's a plus 900, by the way. So if you want it, good bet.
There it is. Main event of the evening, we got Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira. Dude, I fucking love Michel Pereira. He's on a 8-fight win streak. He moved up from 170 to 185. And since doing so, he's been 3-0. Anthony Hernandez is also on a 5-5 win streak, so he shouldn't be underestimated. I do think Pereira is a more complete fighter. You can see that kind of in his results. Out of his 31 wins, he's got 11 knockouts, 9 submissions, and 11 decisions, where Anthony Hernandez has 8 submissions in his 12 wins. So he's clearly pretty good on the ground. But yeah, I think that Michel Pereira has 94% takedown defense. I think he's really good at the ground. I just think he's stronger, faster, has better cardio. I think overall he's just better. The way he's been he just kind of ragdolled Eeyore in his last fight. And then he had that like backflip or whatever that he does. That's kind of illegal, but we won't talk about that because the UFC hasn't said anything about that yet. But yeah, it kind of feels like, yeah. And he did that 2 fights in a row, I think, right? He did that last fight, and then he did that fight. But I think last fight, the knee landed on the guy's head when he was down, where in the fight before that, the knee didn't land, so nobody really caught on to it up until when he did against Eeyore.
It's like one of those things that happened, and they were just like, the ref was like, "Oh fuck, that was so cool. I can't call this illegal because it was just so cool." But like, you watch the replay, like even the guy, I forget the guy who was it, Peteria, whoever it was, like looks up at the ref and he's like, "Did you fucking see that? Did you see what just happened?" And then nothing.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know if he'll pull it out of the bag again. I think if he does, it might I'll put him in some dirty waters there. But yeah, I just this is like one of those fights where I feel like I'm picking with my heart, but at the same time, I'm also picking with my mind. I feel like I really do think Pereira is going to get the win here, but it's kind of like a clouded judgment because I just like the guy. He was saving dogs in Brazil also, and he's like during the flooding in after his last win. So like the guy's good shit, and I think he's part of the Fight Nerds. Is he not?
I don't know if he's part of the Fight Nerds, but I mean, he's obviously Brazilian. That's a good question. I don't know. I should know that. I should know that. I love Michel Pereira too. I love this fight. I genuinely don't know either way. I almost don't want to bet on it. Here's what I'll say about it. I think that Fluffy Hernandez made a good point in his media day interview where he said that Pereira has a tendency to gas after 3 rounds because he throws so much energy at you. He's so crazy in there. He's just so insane. What the stuff that he throws at you, it's so unique. It's so different that if Hernandez can survive the first 2 rounds, obviously assuming he doesn't like just, take him down and submit him or whatever in the first couple of rounds, but if he can survive those first 2 rounds, I do think that the fight really does start to favor Hernandez simply because he's a long game fighter, and he's so good at like surviving the war and then getting those like late round submissions. He's been doing it as long as he's been in the UFC. He survives the onslaught for like a round or 2, and then he just submits you. It's amazing kind of how he's climbed the rankings here. I'm taking I don't love my pick, but I do think I'm picking like a 4th round submission for Anthony Hernandez, something like that. That's what I see happening here. And I think Michel Pereira is going to have awesome moments in this fight.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be an absolute banger. I really do. The one thing I'll say against your point is that out of his 11 losses, only one's been by submission. So he's not the easiest guy to submit.
Agreed.
Yeah. But anyway, the fight everyone's excited for. And honestly, as much as I'm excited for this fight, I can't dispute the fact that this fight's going to be a little bit more exciting, most likely. We got Francis Ngannou versus Renan Ferreira. Francis Ngannou actually being the challenger, with Renan Ferreira being the champion at the moment in the heavyweight division in the PFL. Apologies for the graphic as well. I was able to pull out all of Ngannou's stats from the UFC's website, where I couldn't find really anything that stat broken down for Renan Ferreira.
PFL, man.
Yeah, they're not on the same level. But Ferreira, he's a giant. He's 4 inches taller than Ngannou. He's been a champion for, I actually don't know how long. I think he's been a champion for a little bit now. He's on a 4-fight win streak. His last win was against Ryan Bader. Ngannou, he's on a current 6-fight win streak in MMA. He's obviously coming off of a massive loss to Anthony Joshua, where he got knocked out. He got knocked down 3 times. So it's always interesting to see how a guy comes back after getting knocked out like that. Both of the guys were on 4-fight winnings or 4-fight knockout streaks. Francis Ngannou's knockout streak was broken in his last MMA fight against Ciryl Gane, where he won by decision, and he was, I believe, taken down. Or no, he actually took down Ciryl Gane 4 times in that fight.
Yeah.
So he kind of showed his game on the ground a little bit. But yeah, I think Ngannou should be a lock. It just we haven't seen him since him getting knocked out, and sometimes you get knocked out once and you become a little bit more chinny like that. I don't think that necessarily happens to Ngannou because I think he has been knocked out before. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm noticing about this fight. But again, PFL, Renan Ferreira was an absolute nobody up until Ngannou said, "I'll fight you." So that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, this is a weird one because we don't know enough about in terms of like Renan Ferreira's opponents, right? We haven't seen him beat anybody that's like, we saw him beat Ryan Bader, who is a legend, who's a great fighter, but he's also like 41 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and is like just clearly not the guy he used to be. I got to tell you, like I'm a little scared for Francis Ngannou in this fight. I think Ferreira is a freak of nature. He's an incredible athlete. We know what Ngannou is. This is like a potential like star-making situation here if Renan Ferreira can knock out Francis Ngannou. And I don't like any of these optics for Ngannou. For Ferreira looks bigger, he looks faster, he's younger, and he's hotter. Ngannou, in terms of like hot streak, not in terms of their looks as a man. They're both very handsome men. So
you got to think for Renan Ferreira. We get it.
Yeah,
No.
but Ngannou is coming off of getting knocked out. He's coming off of being in 2 boxing camps. He has 1 MMA camp where, I hope they're working on wrestling, because that is a path that I see for Ngannou here, where I do think he's going to have to implement some takedowns, because Renan Ferreira, he touches you once, it's night-night. Obviously, the same applies for Francis Ngannou. I love the fucking odds for Renan Ferreira. I really do. I think these are incredible odds that you can consider taking, only because of the situation of a guy taking 2 or 3 years off from MMA versus this guy who's been like having on the hot streak of all hot streaks. I don't know, man. I really like Ferreira, and I hate saying it because I love Francis Ngannou.
Yeah.
And I love the
It kind
odds.
of
I'm a
feels
sucker
like,
for odds, dude. I just can't help it.
I know. You see the plus 205 and you're
Yeah.
like, let me put my house on it.
Yeah. Or $100.
Yeah. When I look, it's like a weird situation, because when I look at Renan Ferreira, it feels like he's got nothing to lose, but at the end of the day, he's got everything to lose. He is the champion at the moment, but it kind of feels like a reverse, like Khalil Roundtree, Alex Pereira situation, where Khalil Roundtree was coming in as the underdog. He's a smaller guy. He wasn't the champion. A lot of people were like, why is he there? So he really did have nothing to lose, but it feels like Ferreira might be taking a similar approach, where everybody assumes Francis Ngannou is going to absolutely maul him. And he might be going into the fight in the same mentality, saying, I have nothing to lose. And if I win, I am going to be the biggest star in MMA at the moment. Everybody's going to be talking about me. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because when guys have nothing to lose, a lot of the time they can win.
Dude, I mean, I'm telling you this right now, like in terms of, this is such a big moment for PFL just as an organization as a whole, because this is their first super fight pay-per-view. So this is like the whole thing they literally created was built around signing Francis Ngannou. This is their big marketing plan to like the Saudis, to to the MMA fan base as a whole. Like, this is how we're going to compete with the UFC, is with this pay-per-view Super Fights division. And if Renan Ferreira can knock out Francis Ngannou, you might think, oh, Francis Ngannou loses his star power. I disagree. I think it's actually star making. It's actually, it might be better for PFL that Ferreira wins, because then you could potentially set up a rematch. You could potentially, then all of a sudden you have 2 superstars in the PFL heavyweight division. It's like, it's a big moment for them, and I do think they want Ferreira to. Would they, in an ideal world, Ferreira knocks out Francis Ngannou?
Yeah, I think for the PFL, it does. There's like a couple of things that can happen here. Let's say Renan Ferreira wins, it creates a new star for them automatically, and it kind of legitimizes the PFL brand a little bit by saying, "Hey,
Right,
UFC, we took your best guy, and our guy beat him." You
right,
know,
exactly.
and at the very least, it gets them one more fight in the books for Ngannou. But the more likely scenario, in my opinion, is that they get two more fights out of Ngannou. Because I feel like if Ngannou loses, he's going to go into the next fight a lot more serious. Again, we have to see what happens. But kind of like what I'm playing out of my head, he goes into the fight more serious. He gets the win. They're 1-1. Let's run it back. And now you have a trilogy heavyweight fight. So
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it playing out if Renan wins. It's best case scenario for the PFL for Ferreira to win here.
yeah, because
And
you
Ngannou winning
want to
does
make a
nothing.
star out of him, and then you want to make it attractive for like other guys to come over, not just the Francis Ngannous of the world. It's like, oh, this guy became a star within PFL,
Yeah.
not just going to the PFL. As
Yeah.
opposed like where Ngannou was already a star, like now you've made a star in the PFL. That's very, very important for them. You have to make stars within, not just acquiring from on the outside. So
Yeah. You know, it'd be hilarious is if Renan beats Francis Ngannou and the UFC offers him a mega contract to come fight like Tom Aspinall or something.
dude, it's honestly possible. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't put it out there. He'd be the second guy to get a title shot on his debut in the UFC. Well, there's
yeah,
actually been a
exactly.
few, but second guy in 2024
Yeah,
after Kaya
exactly.
Sakura there. But
Wouldn't
yeah.
put it past him. What just despite
Anyway.
PFL, I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. But anyway, that's been another episode of Insider Betting. Jesse, as always, I appreciate your time. We will
It's a
be
good one.
back next Thursday for UFC 308, I believe, right? It's
Yep.
Holloway versus Taporia.
So
Yeah.
fucking excited. And it's gonna be an
Gonna be
early
a
day
great
too.
fight. Gonna
Fighting
be
in
a
Abu
great,
Dhabi.
great fight. Yeah, we
Yeah.
love these foreign cards. It's the
Yeah.
best.
So I'm excited.
But yeah. But anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting, brother. And we'll talk next week.
Sounds good.